Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is Entrepreneur and So Much More. And for those of you who have been joining in, Justin MIRIGLIANI is my dear friend and also the co-host of this show and the creator of the title. Justin is going to be taking a little time off, and he will be joining us again in January. So I will continue to host the show with his blessing, and I'm really excited to welcome entrepreneurs from across the world and have them share their story. Joining us today is a gentleman I've had the privilege of interviewing before, and we've also had some offline conversations. I'm hopeful he'll be joining our team at some point. He's joining us from Kenya in Africa, and he is a career coach and also a keynote speaker. He's the link between investors and business owners. Let's welcome George Adongo Ochieng. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Jacalyn.
It's a pleasure to have you. And by the way, thank you so much for your flexibility. As you know, you were scheduled to be on when the show normally airs, which would have been your midnight. I thought, let's see if we can get you to sleep a little bit earlier instead of staying up till then. So I realize it is 10 p.m. there. So thank you for making the time.
Sure, thank you.
So, George, you have a very unique background in the work that you do, and I'd love to have you share a little bit about what is it that you mean, the link between investors and business owners. How are you sort of the hybrid there to help bring these together?
Well, it's a very interesting background, Dr. Jacalyn. A few years ago, I caught up with a very interesting conversation about what people needed to do. And I discovered that many people are struggling with business ideas in terms of the innovative progress. And I thought of just how then do I respond to these particular questions? And probably just to take you back a few years ago, somebody had come to my office and had very little idea. And the person indicated that there are about just about 100,000 or so US dollars or more. And when they asked me how to help them, I told them just to go and pray about it, and maybe God would guide them. I'm not undermining prayer. But then in the course of time, I got to understand that there were challenges that people are facing at different levels, especially from the concept of the entrepreneurs themselves with great ideas. But then there was also the question of investors who would also want to participate, whether it is in debt funding or in equity stakes. And so there are concerns that they also have in terms of what is it that would make it easier for them to support certain individuals. So in the course of time, I found myself in between, talking to investors in different meetings and hearing their concerns, and yet on the other hand, also talking and having those kind of intimate conversations with business owners. So, of course, in the long and the short of it, I ended up becoming now the link between the two parties.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And just while we're on this topic, there are many times when someone starts a business and they really need some investment. They need a partner, they need a backer, they need somebody to invest money into their business. And so it sounds like you're able to make introductions between investors and entrepreneurs that maybe they can come together for some type of partnership.
Exactly. We are able to discuss the several options that are available. Like right now, what is common now in the market, someone might consider themselves to come, and then we look at it in terms of, are they looking at a debt? That means that we look at the background in terms of due diligence. We review their collateral. Most investors would be careful enough to see that if the person seeking funding or the business owner is not able to pay up, then there must be a fallback that enables them to recover their money. But then it is also possible that certain individuals are also looking for partners that otherwise you'd call them looking for an equity stake. So the individual might say that in my business, I will be offering probably an equity of about 20% or 30%. So the person becomes a partner in that particular pursuit.
Thank you, George. That makes a lot of sense. So, in your role as a career coach, you're also, I think, a business coach because you have to, as an entrepreneur, you have to have certain documentation, certain information for investors to be able to make a decision. So, how do you coach people who are entrepreneurs about the documentation that they need to present so that an investor will know when they're getting what the return's going to be and when they're going to get their money back?
Ordinarily, one of the concerns that we have, even over and above, is to look at in the security in terms of investments destination, and we are looking at an area, the areas that probably are more prone to money laundering. So there is something called MAL, that is called anti-money laundering. Leveraging. And that enables us to look at their way of determining that in different quarters. For example, the risk in places like Kenya, Nigeria, or generally Africa, or South America, or some part of the world could be higher. Yet in other places it could be lower. And so what we do here is then we are able to sit with the investor, but also sit with the business owner, analyze their background. Background here, sometimes we ask, how has the business been in existence? We have several levels. The businesses that could be at the level of an idea, and that is usually the earliest stage. Some businesses could be at the MVP stage. That means they are trying to do more of what is called testing or piloting. There are others that could be at the level of pre-seed. Some could be at the levels of what we call Series A or Series B. So different investors have interests of different levels of businesses. As we are able to sit, discuss that comprehensively, and let the business owner know the kind of a person they need to correspond with.
Thank you, George. And I know that everything hasn't been easy as can be for you. You've had a number of challenges you've overcome in your life. How have they helped shape who you are today?
One of the key areas that have really shaped who I am today or what I've become today is to deal with the people, and particularly focusing on the element of empathy. Because I found out, especially from the time that COVID hit the world, that it is not just that people are not hardworking, it's not just that people are not smart, but sometimes the circumstances that are beyond our control. And so I've personally gone through lots of these particular dimensions, especially when COVID hit. We had issues. Although the office, I was still able to run the office, but I had businesses, some of them that I was not able to make a payment. Their clients that had served it diligently, and they were not able to pay me up. So every time I look at people, I don't just want to talk about money. I want to prioritize people over profit.
Thank you, George. And I know we spoke about this briefly on the other show, but I think it's important. I'm here in the United States and you're there in Africa. And for people to understand what the environment is like there in Kenya in terms of people who want to become entrepreneurs, what is that path like to actually start your own business?
It would be very relative to the area that somebody would want to invest. But just like any other person, definitely one of the requirements of an international person is that for you to comprehensively participate in a business venture in a country like Kenya, yes, you need to get some level of documentation. But one of the key things is that it would be important to also have somebody as a resident that works with you, that gives somebody a great leverage. And it also gives you some kind of authenticity and acceptance. But then the timelines may vary from one business to another. Right now, our government is trying to automate a lot of services. Of course, we still have a lot of, a few teething challenges because this is a new government and they're trying to fix things. Especially recently, we had a finance bill that was meant to become an act and is still challenged by the court today. So that still makes some things still a bit tricky, but still it's easier to talk to us as locals and guide people within the corresponding dimension.
Thank you, George. And for people who are in the States or in other parts of the world and they're interested in opening a business there in Kenya, what is that process and are you part of that? Can you be part of that?
Right. I am part of this process. I work with lots of colleagues, just like I said earlier, that I'm a link between donors or investors and the destination, particularly in Kenya. We have a very comprehensive team that is able to help us piece anything together from any office and any background. And of course, beyond that, just beyond Kenya, we also have a global team, but we have a very comprehensive team also within the entire continent of Africa.
And what does the process look like for someone to reach out to you and say, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to open an office. I want to open a location there in Kenya. What are some of the steps that follow?
Well, one of the core areas that I'm looking at right now, I've made certain mistakes in the past. And one of the mistakes I made is that I was not very clear in terms of letting our colleagues, particularly from the West, understand that when you work with us, of course, every business has got some kind of financial engagement. And so it would be important that those who are reaching out to us probably think about different levels. Level one is that somebody can engage us as a consultant to help them set up. That means we can help with the registration locally and then set this one up, set an office, set everything. Others can also consult us to probably just do a bit of a study, and you probably that can help them to anchor the kind of business or kind of innovation or initiative they want to undertake. And then lastly, that is also very possible that the individual can also come and say, well, I am already engaged in this and that. And then we also give them those linkages and the people who can help them. So they just pay for the service, but then introduce them directly to the partners that they need to correspond with.
Thank you, George. I appreciate that. As someone who owns a couple of businesses themselves, I know for me that I spend 80 or 90 hours a week working because that's what it takes when you start a business, at least in my experience. So for somebody who's not going to be relocating to Kenya and they want their business to be a success, what do you think makes the difference between somebody succeeding or failing in their business if they're not able to be there on a regular basis?
The most interesting thing now, because of globalization, is that yes, it would make a lot of difference for somebody to be in Kenya in person. But we also have lots of examples of businesses that are run in terms of goodwill. Of course, that goodwill must be anchored on law, where we sign and people agree. For example, we said earlier we can be partners, and one says that I want to initiate this kind of business in Kenya. As we said, my stake is probably going to be 20%. And so we'll be having a board, and that board can cut across. For example, I was sitting in a board of an NGO, and the team actually were in the US, or are in the US, but we're still able now to have our traction all around Kenya and periodically report to them on time and just make everything work. And actually, that is what makes it easier right now. From the time COVID taught us that it is easier to connect with the people way beyond just what we used to call the old school offices.
Thank you, George. And understanding the marketplace and the country there, what types of businesses do you think would be a good fit to start out opening a business location in Kenya?
Several businesses. Kenya is known to be the center, particularly in the global south. They are coming to East Africa. Kenya plays a very pivotal role because you have the UN. Headquarters here, most of us come. The joke that people have in East Africa is when Kenya coughs, then the rest of the countries in the region catches the cold. And so Kenya plays a very pivotal role in the areas right now. Government and the community is working so well in terms of ESG-related businesses, and we are talking about environment, social, and governance. That is the green economy that is really taking shape in terms of people planting trees and stuff like that, and of course the green bond. And then we are also looking at generally then the area of agribusiness that is taking shape, because the livelihood of people has been critically affected, and so we are thinking of how to engage in various areas of agribusiness. But then EdTech is still an area. We have various dimensions of education that have been going on with a new curriculum that is taking shape in Kenya. And then the government is putting a lot of emphasis in mid-level institutions to see how they can actually help people regain in terms of skill set. Among others, of course, it could be almost all the industries like, as I said, the telcos, and it could be any other commercial real estate, among others.
Brilliant. Thank you, George. What about the reverse for Kenyan business owners who are looking to start something outside of the country? Are you able to be the link between investors and business owners in that case?
Well, a very interesting one. We have the reverse, because I have a very trusted colleagues and lieutenants in the US that are very prominent in different industries. And as we work together day to day, day in, day out, we are able to still also get every form of requirement fulfilled through my team members in Europe and in the US.
It's great news. Fantastic. Thank you. And in addition to you being the link between investors and business owners, let's talk a little bit about your work as a career coach and then also as a keynote speaker. So, as a career coach, when did you start this, and who are the people that you typically help?
I started much earlier in 2000, and the kind of people that I help are basically are integrated within the probably a three tier, and I'm looking at parents or guardians. I look at students who are in school. I started earlier with those in grade 1 to grade 8, but then I graduated to also grade 9 to grade 12, but currently also seeking to support lots of colleagues within the university or the college dimension. Then we also then meet people as answering the other one. It is interesting that the people we talk with are also the ones who invite us to the institutions as a keynote speaker.
Thank you, George. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit about the educational platforms there in the universities. And what I mean by that is, today, when I look back over my education, there are many areas that were not covered in my bachelor's, my master's, or my doctorate. Some of these include the power of listening, the art of negotiation, how to manage your money. I mean, there's so many things that were not covered that we actually have to learn after the fact. And I'm wondering, how would you say, based on your experience, those areas and others are lacking, or maybe they're prolific, depending. But if you're a business student, for example, do you feel that the education that's needed is taught there in the various universities?
Well, there's always been a challenge globally about the curriculum and the corresponding dimension in the marketplace. At one time in Kenya, we remember that the employers were not very amused, and in fact, there's been a talk of many people missing to get placement in the marketplace because the careers sometimes, in terms of the training or the outcome, does not match the skill set. There's a mismatch, definitely. But what has been going on of late is that there are intensive training going on by different cadres of people to indeed meet that particular gap, or rather respond to that gap. And so precisely you're talking about how then do people continue skilling or upskilling or cross-skilling. And this is becoming a very prominent feature within different tiers, and companies have taken this up as within the market, the workplace training, but there are different other cadres of people that also provide the same as a registered institution.
Thanks. It's interesting how from country to country things vary, but yet at the core things are the same. And what I mean by that is there's always certain core courses, I believe, that are taught, but as an entrepreneur, there's still so many things to learn that there's no handbook or manual that's given, at least when I was in school. So it's great that you are that link to help people understand what actually is necessary. When it comes to advancing in someone's career and actually advancing can look like a lot of things, but to some people, advancing really means having your own business, making your own decisions, hiring your own employees. What do you think? What skills do people need to leave a corporate role, for example, and go into entrepreneurship?
Oh, well, one of them is what I call practicality, but then so much in terms of what is called flexibility. There are three areas: early career, mid career, and the late career. And at first, I used to think that it's only the early career that people go through challenges. But I still realized that even in the the middle career and most of the late career, when people are now thinking, like I've had colleagues talk about this, I've been in the institution for a long time, probably. I'm saying an example of people talking about they've been in institution, for example, teaching at the university, and they want to transition into probably something like a business or business coaching. One of the areas then for me is to think about the element of constantly learning, seeking to understand what goes on, the kind of what I would call the departure from the academy to the marketplace. So the marketplace requires that we also are able to identify with the needs of the community, but also being able to let people understand what I think I would put in a simple term in terms of what is it that is your elevator pitch. What is this thing that is unique about you that you can put together as part of your skill? But then we look at that as in terms of a transferable skill.
Thank you, George. I know in your LinkedIn profile, we're going to be sharing that. In fact, let's share that right now. This is a new LinkedIn profile, correct? So people will have an opportunity to go ahead and connect with you here. Are you able to see this?
Right. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your title here. So we've discussed some of these things, but what about top person ambassador?
Top Person Ambassador is a registered institution, a nonprofit in the US that brings people together, those who are into social innovation, and members who join the community support one another in terms of knowledge exchange.
Thank you, George. And we want people to go ahead and connect with you on LinkedIn. So we do have your link here. Let me just put it up here. So they can go over to LinkedIn and follow this link, and then they can connect with you. We still have more show to go, but while we're on LinkedIn, who would you like to connect with you on LinkedIn?
Those that fall within my category, and particularly the business owners that are looking for investors that are seeking to also participate in different investment initiatives, different industries, donors that are seeking to participate in social impact programs, that is NGOs in Africa, or rather those that, like in the past, have invited me to speak in their functions as a keynote speaker.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to stop sharing this screen for now. And so when you think about the various times that you've been a keynote speaker, what are some of the topics that you've spoken on that really warm your heart, that you're really passionate about?
Well, the first one that really warmed my heart was just after I finished grade. I had graduated from high school, that is grade 12. And I joke about it that I only had a Form 4 degree or grade 12 degree. Of course, there's no such degree, but I look at it and I was invited to speak to an institution, and that is an institution of higher learning, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. And I was asked to speak about wide reading and research. That was the most interesting one. I can never stop marveling how I made it, because I had a lot of inadequacies. I kept on protesting to my hosts whether I could help them get another professor to speak to them about that particular topic. But then, as it were, by the grace of God, the engagement was so superb, and the students marveled and wondered, "Hey, well, this guy is a professor." And I looked back today. I said, "Wow, that was amazing."
Congratulations. When did that take place?
That was way back around 2005. Of course, the other one was also when I was invited to speak in one of the county governments as a keynote speaker. And it was a high note one, a keynote, as they would say, very senior government officials, very senior people from community leaders, senior academics, and I happened to have been invited as a guest speaker. Once again, that of course, I had a lot of fear, just I didn't know where to begin. And at the time, I'm not even sure if I had a proper profile, but I somewhere wrote something pretty fast, and the coordinator was able to announce that, wow, our guest is here. But of course, everything went on well.
Have you ever considered doing a TEDx speech?
That is my dream, Dr. Jacalyn. I've been looking at my colleagues here and many others that have been speaking in these dimensions. And perhaps just to let you know that when we had the first engagement with you, talking about authentic achievements, I have actually made commendable progress about my draft. And part of the discussion I'm having here is already in writing.
That's amazing, George. Wow. I'd love to hear that.
You challenged me.
Really? That's good. But you're the one who did it. You're the one who did it.
In fact, I've got career quotations that is doing very well. I'm almost, of course, I will not be done, but I've made a commendable progress in terms of having my own original career quotes. And if you'd allow me, I can actually just read one pretty fast. And I'm also having others within the Christian sphere on just how that would also help people with their learning dimensions. Let me just read even one for you. And one of them is, now that you're talking about entrepreneurship, making money is a useful instrument for both the present and the future, especially in the paying attention and innovative saving culture. But then one of them is also successful entrepreneurs are continually looking for opportunities for fresh perspectives and development in the community capital investment chain. And there are many. So let me just stop there.
Wow. Congratulations. Thanks again, George. And you're inspiring me as well. A question I have for you, because this is a business show and we are talking with entrepreneurs, that's our message, bringing education, hope, and inspiration. I've spoken to many entrepreneurs who I feel, I hate to use this word limit, but I'm going to. They limit their growth because of fear. And usually it has to do with investing money in something or putting money out. And what they'll say is, oh no, I'm afraid to do that right now because I'm doing this. Where do you think that line is between taking the risk of looking to grow your business, so you have to actually commit financially to something that maybe you're going to be taking the money from one thing or another, to being in a fear mode where you're afraid to actually grow the business because you don't want to put the time or the money into it?
The mistake, and in fact, as I was coming to this meeting, I remembered as we were talking to colleagues at different spheres, especially investors, one of the outcomes that I've had recently is that in fact, in most cases, entrepreneurs or business owners may not exactly need money in the first place. Sometimes what they need to do is to onboard certain individuals that have walked the path. And this is why the kind of coordination that we do is actually not just about the knowledge that somebody has, but then asking the individuals that how do you also connect with others in terms of knowledge sharing. And that means that who do you onboard? Who do you recruit into your board to help you? Sometimes a business owner may actually need to recruit someone else to be the chief executive officer of the president, or they may even need to have certain individuals who already are buying from the fellow investors or other investors. As long as people see those kind of individuals in the team, then they would actually work with them. And those people then have gone through it. They have walked the talk. So they are able to understand the risks that are involved in the market, and are able to also tell you when to push your first leg forward. But then even beyond that, in terms of diversification, so that one is also able to minimize the risk, or rather to minimize the fear.
Thank you, George. The really powerful words that you shared there. I think that fear is that self-limiting belief, and it comes up with those negative thoughts that we have, that I'll never be good enough, I'll never get this, I'll never sell that, I'll never have customers. And yet, if we keep doing the work and we reach out to somebody like you who can actually have a fresh set of eyes to look at our project or look at our business, that can make the difference between success and failure.
Exactly. You know, when you look at yourself in a mirror, let me just give an illustration that may not be common to my colleagues in the West, but an illustration of, a goat. And when a goat goes into the river, they look at the water, and who do they see? They see themselves. So they run away because they see another goat fighting them, only to discover that in fact, actually, they are the ones. And so usually when we look at ourselves in such kind of scenarios, it is very easy to run away, not just from reality, but even sometimes running away from opportunity.
That's a great analogy, a great example that you mentioned about seeing ourselves and being scared, thinking it's somebody else. But so, George, what I'd really like, we have some new people who are just joining the show now. I'd love for you to really articulate where it is that you can assist entrepreneurs or people who are thinking they want to start a business. What are those gems, those nuggets that people can say, okay, when I think of George, I think that he's going to do or be able to do this, this, and this?
The first thing is that actually say this, as most of my colleagues would agree, that business does not begin with the business itself. Business is actually about making authentic connections. Authentic connections here means you're building lasting camaraderie, because friends help friends. No investor would want to invest someone because they just have a good project, or rather they have got a good proposal or a good pitch. It all begins by, how do I connect with you? So really then what do I do? It begins by even talking with people to understand where they are at in terms of their conceptualization, that in terms of the ideation, and then help them review their documents. And number two is to, beyond reviewing the document, to also make them understand what will be the core areas then that they need to pick when they are going to talk to an investor. But then number three, also in terms of location. And then number four, also in terms of the requirements. For example, sometimes somebody may not be having, a proper collateral, or what is called an acceptable collateral for certain investors. We may be able to go through the entire list and just let them know that in this particular dimension, what you need is, maybe in your business, you need a blend of equity and debt financing, or in some cases, what we say, you probably need to raise certain money to also get a standby letter of guarantee or bank guarantee, or in some cases, you probably just need to go right ahead and engage someone in the product that you already put into the, you've already, ready for sale, in terms of offtake agreements, which goes up to about 10 years, or maybe you need to have something like a public bond that can act as a collateral. So those are some of the core areas that would help business people, which of course are more critical.
George, thank you very much. That it's really important that people understand that they have options. So for someone who's looking to go the traditional route and maybe get a bank loan, for example, when you first start out in business, that might not be even something that's available to you because you haven't been in business, but you can offer alternatives or even assistance in maybe partnering with someone to get the collateral to get the bank loan. That's what it sounds like you're sharing.
Exactly. We are able to connect these individuals with, generally we call them a bank instrument, and that helps them. And of course, these guys would also be able to work with the individual and let them know where the threshold lies. But allow me just to say this, Dr. Jacalyn, one of the mistakes I see a lot with business owners is when people get so much into head knowledge, a lot of jargons, and people think just by reciting what they've already gathered somewhere in a write-up will guarantee them or give them space in the heart of an investor. Not at all. In fact, some investors, just by virtue of having a colleague that they already know, will easily jump into a business initiative because they have trust.
George, I'm wondering, as an extension of what you're sharing, I've watched many Shark Tank episodes, and of course not a paid subscriber or paid sponsor for Shark Tank, but I've learned quite a bit. Have you ever heard of it or seen Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, I think they have in the UK?
Not really.
Okay. Well, it's a show where they have investors and people come up and give their pitch to see if the investors will right there on television make a decision. And two things that I've learned. The one is you better know your numbers. You better know your business numbers if you're going to ask an investor. And many times these people, they've been told what it is they need to know, and they don't know their numbers. They don't know their sales. They don't know when the investors can expect to get a return. And then the other thing is that sometimes they're working in other businesses and they're not 100% in this business where they want an investor to make an investment. And that never seems to go over too well. What are your thoughts about any of those things that I just shared?
One of the most important things for people to understand is that an investor would be very careful to invest in the individual first and foremost. But when you're talking about people going for pitches and trying to demonstrate what it is that they're doing, something that I thought as you are talking is that it does not even begin by talking about the funding itself. But the first thing is that that has been almost the academic procedure, but it begins by indeed people letting us understand what is this kind of pain point that you are responding to in society. Because when one begins by talking to us about pain point and how they are going to respond to pain point, then it is easier now to come to a much later stages thinking about who are in my team, and then of course what would be the revenue and the stuff like that, and how of course they really have to be clear facts and figures or indicators to really show that this business is going to do well at a certain time.
Thank you, George. We are coming to the end of our show, and I'd really like to just open it up for you to take a few minutes to just share anything that you'd like to share based on your experience, based on where it is you're going, anything that you need help from our audience about. So I'll give you these next couple of minutes to just take the screen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jacalyn. And of course, thank you so much, audience globally, for participating. First and foremost, I would want to invite you to support my sister, Dr. Jacalyn, as a commendable and a great program that she's doing, supporting people in different social innovation areas. From my own end, I'm available. Please seek me out through the contacts that are given here, and I would be more than glad to have some kind of a discovery call with you and just see how we can help you. And then lastly is that, of course, as you go through this, I would want to remind us that the most important thing of engagement is prioritize people over projects. While it is important that projects cost a lot, but when we have people and we have got their buy-in, it will be easier for them to also to introduce us to their networks, and that becomes our greatest capital.
Thank you, George. It's been an absolute pleasure seeing you here again. And thank you for staying up late. I hope that you'll be able to get some sleep. You can contact George on Twitter or on LinkedIn. We also have George's That must have been awkward. All of a sudden I disappeared. Sorry. StreamYard kicked me out for a second. So I was saying we also have George's information on Facebook. You can find him there. And you can also find him, as I mentioned, on LinkedIn and Twitter. Here is the information on Facebook. So there's also Telegram and a Facebook group. There's also a YouTube channel that you can get to as well. So all the information is here in the comments. George, I look forward to seeing you again. I know you're going to be coming on some other shows, and it's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jacalyn. To have a good day.
Thanks. Sleep well. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who's watching or listening. I greatly appreciate it. And we say a big hello to Justin MIRIGLIANI, and we look forward to seeing him again in January. I just have one comment, a selfish pitch, that our latest book, it has a lot of green in it, but it's our latest Lady Ella book, The Ocean Calls and Lady Ella Listens. And you might think, why is she bringing this up on a business show? Well, because my other business is Dr. Jacalyn LLC, and I teach people how to listen at an elevated level through our courses, through my coaching, and through our children's books. So we currently have 4 children's books. I want to make sure I get them in the right order. And they're all part of the same series, The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the Listening Mentor. Lady Ella is the ladybug, And you can see her here, and she has her necklace on. Her name is Ella, and she represents my great niece, whose name is Ella, and she is featured in all of the books. They are dedicated to her. And in each book, you'll see the animals on the book cover. They all represent real people who took my course, The Power of Listening, and became certified to listen at an elevated level. And now we bring them onto the inside of the books in the back, and you can see and you can read about each of the animal characters. So please go over to Amazon and pick up the latest book as well as the rest of them. We really appreciate this. Latest book is about ocean pollution and how the animals have to work together to communicate and also to free one of their own that is caught in one of a fisherman's nets. That's over on Amazon. You could just put in my name and you'll find it. All right, thanks again. We look forward to seeing you back for our next show, which is A Woman's Prerogative. And you can watch all of our shows over on our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV and Radio. Our show today is sponsored in part by Zane Carson Carruth, and Zane has a new show that's coming out this Thursday, Elegance, Polished Demeanor, and Posh Living. Let's take a look at Zane's sponsorship, and then we will see you again later today. Bye.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating warm memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Bella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book, Bella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Bella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.